Welcome to the Conduit Deeper podcast, a podcast that takes a deep dive into the details that surround our current sermon series, from current events to fascinating finds to conversations that take us deeper into the Word. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome to the Deeper Podcast. My name is Mo, Executive Pastor at Conduit Church, joined back with our fearless leader, Lead Pastor Darren Tyler, who has been traveling the world. A globetrotter, as they would say.
Is that what they say?
That's what somebody says.
I don't know if it was trotting as much as
globetrotter.
crawling.
Yeah, I mean, you and producer Micah, assistant producer Ethan, went to Nepal.
You can say it. I mean, they're not scrubbing it yet, but
Okay.
we're trying to be careful.
Well, that wasn't careful.
Yeah, but it's the one benefit is that the Nepali government is so imploding in on itself, and they don't have like the technology, say, of like some of the other North African countries.
The bots to crawl and find who's talking about what and connect those dots. Right?
Yet. So what I'm actually more concerned, quite honestly, with what they call the Hindu army. Their version of like Hindu ISIS. I'll take it all the way back. So 2000, I started a headhunting firm that focused on wireless application companies in the Silicon Valley. We raised a decent amount of money. So it's such a random story, I never talk about it. But our main investor was a guy named K.R. Patel. We actually called the company Shikari with an E at the end because it was the internet. But Shikari with an I is a Hindi word for big game hunter. But my point in sharing all of that is we were hiring technologists, coders, CTOs, all that for application companies in Silicon Valley. And I promise you 95% of the people we hired were from India. Math, coders. Point being that for 25 years, there has been an upper hand in countries that really favor math and discipline. And so my point in saying all that is I'm more concerned that they've got some Hindu coders, from Hyderabad, scrubbing the internet. It's not a government level yet. And so we're just trying to be careful because it's not, in just the last 6 years, it's changed dramatically there, which is a lesson for us of how fast something can change if you're not paying attention.
What was the name of the army?
They call it the Hindu army.
What does, like, how big are they? Like, what is their goal? Who are they funded by? Like, what's the story on the Hindu army?
The only thing I know to explain it is it's like an ISIS, but for Hinduism.
So a military-based organization that's helping curtail religious affiliations.
Yeah, and not to give them too much credit, because ISIS, Boko Haram, they're all carrying large weapons, explosives. These guys are more likely to be carrying small arms, long rifles, clubs. Like when you read like the Manipur region of India, which is the northeast, by global standards, it's really close, but it's still like a 10-hour drive, but it's like an hour flight. Just Google Manipur, like churches being burned, persecution of Christians in that region of India. And where we are is on the border of India. But all those, and this has been going on for a few years now, and it's starting to seeping across the border into Nepal.
And that Hindu army, their real goal, you're saying, is to kind of squelch any Christianity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Altogether. I mean, that's their purpose. That's their point. That's why they.
Yeah. So, for instance, they're and technically this is a law, by the way. But any conversion out of Hinduism is considered a forced conversion, because in their mind, no one would willingly convert away from Hinduism. Mm. So it's called forced, and that's illegal. But when you take it to the ground level, so like let's just you pick whatever random Muslim country. Lebanon. Okay, let's start with that. Like they've got the government of Lebanon, and then they've got like Hezbollah, which is like this sub organization that sort of carries out with impunity. That this is the beginnings of that in Hinduism, which is the Prime Minister of India. His version of "Make India Great Again" was we're going to make it Hindu again, which is a kind of a struggle when you've got, one of the largest, if not largest, Muslim populations on earth is actually in India. People don't know that. I think there's 250 million Muslims in India. Fact check me on that. Christian population is larger, but not that large there. But point is that you've got a prime minister that wants to make India great again by making it Hindu again, and then they've got these fringe groups that are trying to help it along without necessarily the tacit endorsement of the government, but also no resistance from the government.
Is there an Islamic influence in Nepal?
Yeah, there is. It's, I want to say it's 15% of the population.
And the Christians would make up what percentage?
1.75%.
Okay, so by far the minority.
Yeah, so I think, I wish I knew this off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure Hinduism is top in Nepal, followed by Buddhism, and then Islam, Christianity.
We don't even get a bronze medal out of this.
Oh, Lord, no. We are like a distant last place on that. And so it's a really wild time to be alive, because with all that opposition, Brendra messaged me last night that
who's that?
I'm sorry, Pastor Brendra. He's our guy, the pastor that we work with there. He's the pastor of Conduit Church, the head of Conduit.
Tip of the spear.
Yeah. Last night, he's celebrating, this new village. There's people getting saved, and he gets a phone call on the way back with a threat to his life by the Hindu army. If you come back to this village again, we will kill you.
Did you guys experience anything like that while you were there?
No, because we stayed. That was intentional on my part. We stayed in just because your son and
my son and your son were both there.
Yeah. So we stayed inside of Biratnagar proper. Now, there was still danger there because a couple of those guys we were baptizing were former Hindu army guys.
Oh, wow.
And so we were aware that if word got out that the baptism was going on at that specific moment in time, that they might, they get their little WhatsApp group chats, everybody, or Telegram, I don't know what they're using over there, everybody, this guy's getting baptized, we got to go call, organize, get over there by noon, whatever. So there was a concern, an awareness of that.
Wow. But
it wasn't like we were advertising it. There wasn't like social media posts. So the only way it could have happened is if like word spread, So, and it's also why we get in and get out pretty quick. Yeah. We're only on the ground like 2 days, and we've got we actually have a decent relationship with the communist police chief there, who. Yeah. They love the school. They want to see the school continue to thrive, and they love the good that it does for the community. So he does have our back, but it's like here when a mob shows up, you can only do so much with it. So, but God protected us. We were fine for that time. So
yeah, you were really only on the ground in that area for like 72 hours.
Yeah.
So it's for sure like a drop in, get it done.
Yeah.
Get out. But while you were there, you guys got to celebrate.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty, something worth celebrating, which is this school, this essentially a Bible school. We won't call it that there, but this raising up and teaching of young pastors and leaders in the community. Yeah. There's basically starting their own churches in some way, or I don't know what the proper lingo is, or...
Yeah, so we're kind of building this plane while it's flying, but we called it, it's actually there, and there's a little sign in this little room, Conduit Church, Church Planting School. It's like a 6-month program, ministry training. We actually flew Peter Shindy in from Goa, India, our friend Peter, training. I've done some video sessions. But the way that it's set up is that we call them church planters until they have won someone to Jesus. And the only way that we really know that these people are converted to Jesus is being baptized. It actually kind of takes me back to, maybe that's why this was a very public thing, to say. I'm turning my back on, Judaism and to Jesus through this baptism. So, because there's like 300,000 gods. You just add Jesus onto your list is not what we're talking about. So anyway, we once they have had success and someone's baptized that they have led to Jesus, that's the church now. Now they're a pastor because the church is being born in that little area. It's literally Acts. You can't feel more like Acts chapter 2 if they happen to have rifles. But it's amazing. So these young men, and by the way, there's some young women that were taking just the courses not to be church planters, and there are a couple of guys that weren't taking it to be church planters, but just so they can serve in the churches. With it, we're all on the same page with it. So yeah, we had a first graduation. They took it real serious.
Yeah, of course.
Had little robes. I wasn't prepared for the robes, if I'm being honest.
Did they make you wear a robe?
Well, they did, and I wore it for about 38 seconds.
Did we get that on film, Assistant Micah? Did we get Pastor Darren in a robe?
I don't think we did because I took it off
proof of this
real fast. It was hot.
Yeah, the weather was like 90s and humid over there.
Well, then it's inside this building.
A little sticky.
And so it's already hot in there. And then it wasn't a breathable fabric. I'm not sure what they made it from. I'm like, dear
yak.
God, I'm like dripping sweat. So I took it off real fast. And I didn't want to disrespect him, but, we did write the check, so I'm not going to wear a robe. I'm not asking
too
much.
Was it colorful?
No, it was black with a big white cross on it.
Oh, heck yeah, man.
It kind of giving some reformed Martin Luther vibes, honestly. It kind of felt like someone's about to nail a thesis.
Did you bring it home?
Door. No, I didn't. I wasn't sure if they were rentals. Do you know what I mean? I don't know where they got them.
I mean, I would do anything to have you teach on a Sunday wearing that thing.
Man. I could be a robe guy.
As you're talking about Nepal, you just... donning the gear.
The gear. Well, there's nothing less Nepali than that robe. Like if of all the stuff that's Nepali culture, I'm like, where did this come from?
So is that something they thought you would wear or thought that you would appreciate as an American pastor? Like what?
I don't think it was that. I think that
I love it.
They just really take this stuff seriously.
That's great.
What's celebrated is emulated. And so, we do that in Haiti. We make a real big deal out of, when they graduate from Bible school or whatever, that
they have cake.
No, there was no cake, was there?
I don't know. I was curious on the food in general, honestly.
Well, there was a lot of food. Like there was there was one, definitely a goat that had a bad day, and they just went ahead and butchered that thing right in the courtyard. Man, we got like the overflow of the church sitting outside in the courtyard, and there's a dead goat over there. There's a head, just the head, just sitting like I don't know. Nobody got to that yet, I guess. And but yeah, we did when we do stuff like that. We do
lived on Cliff Bars and trail mix.
Oh yeah, and MREs, just a pot of boiling water and an MRE, So
it's amazing. Well. So glad you're back, and I know that's it's an incredible thing that's happening over there. It's an incredible thing that's happening in Eastern Asia, whether it's through our efforts in Pakistan, if it's our efforts in Nepal. Like the gospel is on the move, and you mentioned this on Sunday that we're experiencing what we would define as a revival here stateside amongst our young men. That is statistically proven at this point. You said that you're experiencing that over there.
It's uncanny, which leads me to believe that there, for whatever is happening, if it is Christ's return being imminent, imminent could mean this week or next year for that matter, 10 years, that, the Bible does speak of a harvest, that would happen. And it seems like, you hear these stories in Muslim countries, you hear them in, say, Hindu countries. I mean, I'm sitting in rooms with pastors there having the same conversation. Can you believe how many people are coming to Jesus?
I've got a random question about that. How did they handle, this is going to seem out of left field, but how did they handle COVID?
Oh, Nepal?
Uh-huh.
Oh, horribly. You probably will remember this when I jog your memory, but Nepal was locking people up in their houses, but there was no government subsidies or government assistance. So people were starving in their homes. And you can find footage still online. I'm sure that if you were caught outside, the police had these like 10-foot poles with a wire around it. And so they would put the rope around your neck so that you were...
Like cattle.
Like cattle. And I'm guessing they're using the Dr. Fauci measurement system of how far they got to be away from you.
I mean, 6 feet? I mean, I don't know, it changed.
But if you remember, that was we
times.
started hiring couriers and Sherpas that were completely out of work. And the same skill set needed to get food is the same skill set that was needed to get, couriers in for like hikers. So we were sending food up into the Himalayan mountains, into their homes. It was completely illegal. How do I say this? We made some arrangements with the local authorities.
Yeah.
And they looked the other way. But as far as a government-wide, they were terrible about it.
I mean, this is kind of one of my working theories right now is that those people that were 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, those high school kids that went through that 5 years ago are now in their young 20s, early 20s.
Yeah, this is an interesting correlation. I did not connect that.
Globally.
Yeah.
Not just here, but there.
Yeah.
Government did not do them any favors. If anything, it suppressed everything that they had going for them. But it was the church that stepped in.
Yeah, not the Hindus.
And it was hope that stepped in.
Yeah.
And it's, again, a working theory, and I'm kind of seeing it play out kind of here because there's a lot of young men that were kind of fed up with how they were treated over the past several years with all of that, amongst other things.
Yeah. And
that kind of the end result is to turn towards Christ, that is the only hope that we have.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting theory, specifically as it relates to COVID, because here, we saw, we were literally being told to believe something that we can see with our own eyes isn't true, or to not believe something that we could see is true. And so, that there's a famine of truth in the land. And so people are seeking truth. Just somebody tell me what's true. And when you're searching for truth, Jesus, if you're searching, you're going to find him. Like if you keep searching for truth, you will, if you're searching for truth, right? Not a narrative, it will lead you to Jesus. And one of the reasons why it's so urgent, I think, I was talking with Fuad, he was in South Korea this weekend, but UPG, the Unreached People Group, there's this goal to reach all of them. Rick Warren's involved. Like it's a very massive global effort that's happening right now that we're not a part of that, but people like say in India right now or Nepal, whatever, they're seeking truth. But if there are no Jesus people there, right, they don't have I grew up and I remember my grandma had a Bible. Like that's a lot of that's in America. We young men are going, young women going to that because they remember that from their childhood. There is none of that there. So if we don't provide the actual truth, then what we see all over the world, like a false truth will step in and take its place, disguised as, and it's just another lap on the crazy train. But you're right. There's something happening there that they're seeking truth, seeking, solutions, salvation, and
answers.
Hinduism wasn't getting it for them. The communists aren't getting it for them. Their government's not getting it for them. We almost had to cancel this trip because of mass protests in the streets of Kathmandu.
Yeah, and that was led by
Gen Z.
Gen Z.
Yeah, it's wild. They're using the exact same language. They talk about Gen Z there with that. And I was asking, Brenda, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And, time will tell. There was definitely an enormous amount of corruption. What I'm wondering, though, is, I'm old enough to remember the Arab Spring and Obama, we're going to bring freedom all over. And all they did was literally remove leaders and left a power vacuum, which is where we saw ISIS and Libya and all these things were happening crazy because at the core, the fringe was still taking over. So I'm not sure when there's a power vacuum like that in Nepal, what ends up happening. I will say this, that this election, the current prime minister that is there is temporary, but I think it's a she, was actually elected almost all online. Like it was an online...
Really?
Yeah. Completely. It's not an election that you would consider trustworthy anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
But they're supposedly doing elections next year there, so...
Well, speaking of elections.
Segue that one.
Speaking of Fouad, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to our podcast in your absence, but we talked about Islam in America.
Yeah.
And we talked about, and I don't necessarily think we called it because it seemed pretty obvious which way this was going to go.
Yeah, like you didn't have to be a genius.
Yeah. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about the gubernatorial. Okay. The gubernatorial race of New York City.
Fact check me on that. Tell me I'm wrong. That's
such a big word. I didn't see that coming.
yeah. Well, it's kind of dumb. It's not like it's the English language. Why would I call that?
The race for governor in New York City.
Yeah.
We talked about this. Zohran Mamdani, who is, he calls himself a democratic socialist, which is
Ridiculous.
ridiculous. It's just a code word for communist Marxist. Am I being too harsh with that? Or is that accurate? Okay.
No.
No. He's
You throw the
Muslim.
word democratic in front of it like it's suddenly, no, it's okay.
Yeah. Muslim. The election was last night. He won by a lot. 10%. 50%. 50% of the votes. 50.2%. Second place was Cuomo at 40.8%. And then Silwa, who's ran for whatever reason, took 8% of that. So it would have been a lot closer overall.
Did they say how many people still voted for Eric Adams? His name was still on the ballot.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see it.
So here's what I've wondered is it feels an awful lot like, because I'm sure they're probably doing the victory lap. Like I was like, beat Cuomo by 10%, but technically
Right.
he beat Cuomo. What is the other guy's name?
Silwa.
And Eric Adams. Like if it still feels like what we are in a national
Sliwa.
level, which is like 50-50. Well, basically it's 48%. 48% are going to vote.
Yeah.
And there's that last 4% that you got to move the needle on. It feels like a little bit like that. Like those two guys had dropped out. But I don't know. You're picking two poisons at that point. Cuomo isn't exactly someone that, that's how crazy it is that Cuomo's a better option. But look, we're all talking to the same age group that is frustrated, that is, and this is what I'm saying like in Nepal, but it's here too. If we don't provide the truth of the scripture of Jesus, someone else is coming with truth. And so there's a competition there. They're all speaking to the same grievance, the same, our kids trying to buy homes right now because inflation. What is Thomas Sowell? I think it's Thomas Sowell says that inflation is the cost of all that free money.
Yeah.
That, we printed trillions of dollars and sit around and be like shocked. But what I'm getting at is that we identify the same problem, but it's a different solution, right? And so what happened there is what I feel like we avoided on the national level again this last election.
Yeah. For sure.
Which is, it's so close. I mean, I was at an event last night and we were like, we cannot rest on our heels here. We have to be able to be smart enough to think about the net positive, the net negative. And Mamdani is a example of how this could go really, really wrong.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch, obviously. Even today, some of his speeches and statements, I mean, he's already kind of like, not even 24 hours later is changing his tune on a couple things that's a little more aggressive than what he campaigned on. It's like, golly, this guy's he just can't wait to enforce his ideology. Come to find out, did a little research, did a little digging. Several of his campaign team worked for Obama in the White House. They are friendly, for sure. There's a lot of people that are saying he's Obama 2.0. Now, technically, he can't run for president, but technically, perhaps Obama shouldn't have either, but that's a whole other.
He just did it. He just said
That's
it.
a whole other thing.
All I know is if you go to Kenya, they think he was born there too. Like they're real excited. I remember going to Uganda in 2008 and I'm like going through security or whatever. And they're like, oh, USA, Obama from Kenya. I'm like, yeah, if that's going to get me through customs, I'm 100%. Yeah.
And Zohran is, Ugandan, believe it or not.
I know.
Just wild. I'm curious what our good buddy thinks over there. Pastor, Uganda.
Matala. I have not had that conversation with him.
If he has any insight to the Mamdani family. What
I do know about Uganda is their bourgeoisie, is actually Indian.
Correct.
There's a very small population of Indian, and they're very wealthy, control a lot of the banking and the fuel. But is Mamdani, I know he's Muslim, but is he Sunni Muslim, but is he from, like, is he Arab? Is he Indian? Like,
he's Indian.
Yeah, okay.
He's Indian, yep. Bombay.
Okay, yeah.
That's where his parents are from.
Well, so my guess is they don't think very fondly of them, because if you're in Uganda, they don't think real fondly of the bourgeoisie or the Chinese influence that's in there right now.
So we have a Democratic socialist as the mayor of New York City, the largest city in America. What happens next, we'll see. I wanted to point this particular tweet that went out today from our good friend, Pastor Josh Howerton. I'm just going to go ahead and read it, and I want us to kind of talk through. I want you to respond to this. He's in Dallas, Lake Point Church.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas. Great guy. He said, the largest city in America just elected a jihad-friendly Muslim communist. Okay, so, people can be like, oh, that sounds harsh. That's very accurate.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's just a fact.
Jihad-friendly, so he supports jihad. You want to give just a quick definition of jihad for those that are catching up to the everything?
So in Islam, the word jihad means struggle. And so you'll hear a lot of leftist people say that's all it means, is the struggle. But just like in USA, like our English, our words have meaning, right? And it depends on who's using it and what meaning they're taking with it. But that jihad is what ISIS, Hamas, Hezbollah, they believe that's what Muhammad called them to, jihad. And it's what every terrorist organization in the world is claiming, jihad, calling for global jihad, a global intifada, which people you hear them chanting, they don't even know that it means it's armed violence is what they're talking about. And so
armed violence against those that don't believe in Islam.
Yeah. Well, it's armed violence against anybody that stands in the way of Islam becoming the predominant.
Yeah.
So their version of religion, ours is right, come with peace, but theirs is come with a sword.
Yeah.
And I love that Fuad says it this way, because it's not Muslims that are the problem, it's Islam that's the problem, and Muslims that are taking the more seriously they take it. That's so the Islamists, and that's the problem that I'll say this on the right too, that if you're not willing to condemn the crazy part, then you're just a coward. But when you see somebody like Mamdani refusing to condemn or always to caveat, well, what they did was wrong on October 7th, but there's no but in that. They were raping, murdering. You can just say that was wrong, and murder and rape, but he won't. He'll say that, but you can understand all the oppression. So it's a friendly endorsement. If he were to come out and not say the but part, well, first of all, he doesn't believe it, right? Because he keeps saying it that way. But also, he would be toast when it comes to his Islamic supporters.
Yeah. I'll start this quote again.
Yeah. So
we have some definitions.
Yeah, we got an Islamic jihad loving.
Yep.
Or let's say friendly, because whatever.
Yep.
That's probably more accurate.
The largest city in America just elected a jihad-friendly Muslim communist, and he basically states he's a communist, but he uses code word of democratic socialist to lessen the blow. And Virginia just elected a progressive who openly advocated for the slaughter of conservative politicians and their children. Did you see all this?
Yeah.
I forget her name.
Yeah, she seems like a lot of fun at a party.
Oh, man. So she stated something this past week that was abhorrent. It's become cliche to say these things, but they are still going to be true for pastors. So he's making a case for this. This should be true for pastors right now. Number one, we really do need to know what time it is. I agree with that. And I feel like we've had our finger on the pulse for for a while as Conduit. It's kind of our makeup. It's kind of our DNA to know what time it is, culturally, and globally, across the world. And that's helped drive our mission. 2, wartime leadership that can A, correctly identify the net threat we are facing, and B, aggressively destroy arguments is going to be needed. You know, he's calling out pastors, saying that we need some wartime leadership, like to know what time it is. We're in a culture war, obviously, and to be able to destroy arguments, which I feel like you do a really good job of leading us in that way.
I mean, that's the casting down imaginations and destroying every argument that would rise above the knowledge of Christ. You know, Paul in Corinthians wrote that. Like, that's a part of our job, is to identify, like, from the culture, this is the lie that is being propagated, and here is the truth. It feels like what seminaries have done. I didn't go, so don't know if that's what they're teaching, but it seems like what they're churning out are a lot of young men and women that can, argue theology on Twitter, but they don't have a cultural engagement or understanding of the cultural side. So there's a lot of building up the truth, but there's not as much in the destroying of the arguments piece. And so, seminaries are not churning that out. And then, I mean, look, I have a lot of empathy because there aren't a lot of people, especially if you weren't encouraged that this is part of your job as a pastor, they're just people that are just genuinely unaware, as hard as it is to believe. You know, a friend of mine here in town that we communicated the week that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, he was barely even aware of who he was. And so we could easily, you shame that guy, but it's just one part of his world. You know, you and I, that's who we were before we were pastors.
Sure.
I remember having conversations back when we were rock and roll managers, talking about China and, anyway.
Nerds.
Yeah. But the geopolitical, is an important part of it with this right now, because these are theology arguments that are being made political. And I really have respected Josh because he, in the 2000s, probably would not have come down this way. He was,
true.
And he's young. Again, a lot of empathy because it really felt like this is the right, thing to not get too controversial. But, we're all learning that all that did was leave a giant vacuum. And let's be candid, we're not, as far as a Conduit, we're not saying anything different than what we've been saying for 15 years. But the culture changed. So what we were doing was not a good model for church growth for 10 years. Like there's a reason why church plant consultants would warn against this, because the vast majority of people kind of like their life. I don't want to know about this. My life's going to be better if I don't think about this. And it wasn't until COVID that it was literally forced it on us, where our church began to grow. And by the way, a lot of churches that speak like we speak or began speaking like we speak have grown immensely, because suddenly people are realizing I can't afford to be asleep any longer.
His last point was that this culture war pacifism isn't a great church leadership strategy.
Yeah.
And he uses the quote, "The only necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing." And the amount of pastors and thought leaders in his feed that pushed up against this was astonishing.
It's kind of staggering, isn't it?
I couldn't believe it. Saying that basically, this isn't the example Christ gave in the New Testament on how to respond in a hostile environment. This is not how Jesus responded in a hostile Rome, or to the Romans of the day. I don't know what to do with that. Like, I'm not sure what they're suggesting when Islam is knocking on their front door. I don't know.
It's hard to get inside their heads because it's very confusing. Like what Josh wrote, that's not a controversial thing to say.
Apparently it is in 2025 in some circles.
Yeah, I guess maybe that when you take the when you strip back the veneer, and this is what I keep having to remind myself, is the spiritual battle. And this is throughout history. This is literally, I'm sitting in Asia. We were sitting in a room with some pastors, and there were a couple of those guys that were like kind of annoyed because we were rocking the boat. We were messing up a good thing. They didn't use those words, but it was like, oh, this is true here too. Like, they didn't want the government or the Hindu army. They didn't want any trouble, kind of want to go live their lives. And here we are getting attention, and all of a sudden people are paying attention. And so and by the way, there are missionaries that would judge that as well and say, oh, you guys are making it harder for us over here. And the truth is that we're just telling the truth. We're literally winning people to Jesus. And the results speak for themselves. I mean, the results, it's not that large crowds are a sign of success, but large numbers of people coming to Jesus, that is proof that something is happening, correct? And if you look at churches that are like ours, we're not just experiencing growth of disgruntled people or people that were looking for courage, but we're also growth of people that are not Jesus people, that are now looking for truth and finding it here. I can't even imagine what it would be like to go to a church on a Sunday, like let's say the week of Charlie Kirk's death, and you're hurting, you're broken, and somehow this guy that's talking to me doesn't even know what's going on in the world. Like, this is a huge part of my life, and I'll preach part of our church's life. So being silent is actually being really loud.
Yeah. Do we know any pastors of churches in some of these cities that are moving towards Islam, these Islamic cities? Do we know anybody in Dearborn or Minneapolis or Plano, Texas? I'd be just curious to have the conversations on, what they're dealing with. Like, what's the tension? What's the conversations in the community, and how they're dealing with evangelism, with just coexisting. Like, how's that really working out right now?
That's a good question. The Islam thing is quickly becoming more visible, but it's been real sneaky for the last few years. So a lot of pastors are really just now catching up to this. So Howerton is in Dallas, which is, Plano is a suburb, like a northern suburb.
True, it's not that far.
And so, on the local level, now I say that as Dallas to Plano, I mean, that could feel like from here to Lexington, Kentucky. It just feels like a whole different world over there. It's so huge and spread out. But we've been so inundated with the leftist, progressive, socialist world, and Islam is kind of sneaking up, and they seem to, as best I can tell, the one thing they all have in common is anything but Jesus, like the spirit of Antichrist in place of Christ. So the democratic socialists, Bernie, that whole world, we're both talking to the same people, right? People that are hurt, they've been disavowed of society, they're struggling financially. We're both talking to the same people. We're just given a different solution. And if these pastors have their way, we're going to shrink back. And if we shrink back, then that vacuum is going to be filled by somebody. And, Islam would be more than happy to take that role.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this as well. There were several, large churches in New York City, like Christian churches, that were they were going to Mamdani's rallies and praying with him, praying over him, like lifting him up, like
anybody we know
endorsing him. No. They were primarily African American churches.
That's interesting.
Siding with him, and saying, this is the future. It's so splintered. It's just really hard to make sense of the alliance in that. Like, what's the root of all of that?
Grievance, right? I mean, that's the root. The grievance of we can't afford to live here. We can't afford groceries, taxes, everything. The irony, of course, is that it's big government that caused this, and the irony is that the answer is not more government, but that's the solution. And so, you've got a 34-year-old guy that I'm sure he's had a couple of jobs, but this is like his first time in the big leagues.
He was an actor.
He's just making all kinds of promises. I don't even know how much authority he has to carry through any of these. Maybe he does. I literally don't know anything about mayoral politics. But if you are broke, if you are struggling, if you can't afford groceries, if your kids can't, whatever's happening, and someone comes along and just promises that I'm going to fix this for you, that's what Trump did.
Yeah.
If you go back to the 2016 election, had the Democratic Party not rigged it, Donna Brazile and all those for Hillary to win, Bernie would have been the candidate. He very well could have beat Trump because, again, he's talking to the same people, the people and the grievances of unfairness in the Rust Belt and the economy, and so they're both talking to the same people. They're just both giving two different solutions for it. And going back to Howerton, if we're going to be silent in that, shame on us. Shame on any pastor that says we got to be silent in this, or that we need to mirror policies and people like, Mamdani. One of the things that Josh talked about was the net benefit. Like, there's no perfect candidate out there. Like, I've been pretty verbal about my frustrations with President Trump with the way he handled COVID and the vaccine and printing money. But as far as the net gain, I appreciated the way he worded that we at least have a net gain here that we would not have had if Kamala had won. And I don't know, there's a part of me that thinks, okay, maybe it's okay that a socialist wins New York because we need one of those about every 20 years.
Remind everybody
this doesn't work, so let them destroy New York. It's already a crap show. But
yeah, I mean, as much as they tighten the screws in California to for what we saw in terms of the displacement and arrival of Californians in Tennessee.
Yeah.
They've already run some projections. The poly market.
Oh yeah.
Ran some projections.
What are they saying?
They're anticipating around 1 million New Yorkers. They're calling it the New York Exodus. The NYC Exodus is expected to be around 1 million to states specifically Florida, Tennessee, and Texas.
Interesting.
Over the next several years.
And poly market, that's like the betting market. So it's not like they are saying it. It's like this is what the zeitgeist is saying because they're putting, which is not a bad place to look. Because if you're willing to put money on it, you do believe it.
Yeah, and I think Shapiro, maybe DeSantis, maybe he already spoke this morning. I don't know, but I know Shapiro. He was waving people in. All of his Jewish brothers and sisters that are in New York City.
If I'm a Jew and I'm in New York, time to go.
Yeah, I mean,
it was already time to go, but.
And the other, caveat to this is, 24 years later after 9/11, we have a Muslim mayor. I mean, who would have ever thought that?
Right.
When that happened 24 years ago, to say that in 24 years from now, this city will have a Muslim mayor. No one would have ever. I mean,
that's genuinely shocking.
Yeah.
And I mean, shows 100% the naivete as it's related to Islam as a religion. Like, even you and I saying this right now, I'm sure half of these pastors in Josh's comment section would call us Islamophobic.
Of course.
And which is definitely a lowbrow tactic to just start calling names and, putting you in a category because you happen to be logical about this. But it'll be... So in my mind right now, the question I'm wondering is it an anomaly in New York alone that only in a place like New York could this even happen? Or is there a big enough shift nationwide that these democratic socialists or Islamists can start to win more electoral seats?
It's a really good question.
And again, back to, these pastors, if we're not willing to run for political office and speak that way, there are a bunch of Muslims ready to rumble. We've already seen it in some congressional Senate seats. Because when you think about like New York in general, they always have a pretty much an outsized view of the impact nationwide as far as their mayoral races. I mean, Giuliani, Bloomberg, Eric Adams. Every time one of them wins, they're like, oh, this could be our new national guy, whichever side of the fence. And then they implode and it's, obviously didn't work out with Eric Adams. So I have a suspicion, as specifically as it relates to Mamdani, that is his future as well, because it is going to be a disaster. Socialism does not work.
Yeah.
Right. It's not going to work this time. So that's why I'm wondering if this is a good experiment, for the rest of the nation to watch.
Sure.
Yeah. But at the same time, I'm also reminded that, as LA goes, as New York goes, eventually the rest of the country goes.
True.
And it's one of the things we've been holding the line here in Tennessee, thankfully. I'm glad for states' rights. But, you look at what's happening in Canada, you look at what's happening, in the liberal, are we 10 years away from this? Are we 15 years away? Or is it possible that there are enough people awake right now that will stem the tide? I love that Dr. Jeff Myers, he said it's not about the lesser of two evils, it's lessening evil. We're not choosing between the lesser of two evils. We're just saying which one is going to lessen evil. And Mamdani is not somebody who's going to lessen evil, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. We continued our Equip series. And this week you came back from Nepal and jumped into a topic called forgiveness. And I wish there was an incredible way to segue all of this conversation into the topic of forgiveness. Maybe the Holy Spirit will illuminate us here.
Maybe.
But the topic of forgiveness, I'm curious to what your feedback was after Sunday.
It was good, which is really encouraging because it was so quiet.
It was heavy
in there. And
it was heavy.
There's that moment of, as a communicator, because there's two things they say, hey, when everybody's real quiet, that's because they're really doing the work. There is really landing with them. That's also something you can say to yourself when you're really sucking wind.
Right.
To make myself feel better. They were just really quiet because they were really, it couldn't be possibly that I was extraordinarily boring. Right. So, but no, I got really heartfelt, good feedback, but also heavy feedback.
Yeah.
Because this is the Genesis 3 world.
Yeah.
There is real live, grievances against people, real live things that are, happening where, what do I do with this? So probably the best feedback I got was just helping, this is what forgiveness is and this is what it isn't. Because Christian history, we sort of conflate forgiveness and reconciliation all into one basket. That feelings are going to be, I suddenly forgive it. As if forgiveness is a feeling as opposed to a decision, for instance. That's not something that we're really well equipped for. And honestly, it does fit a little bit with what we're talking today, because in the world we're in right now, not only is there splintering happening between political parties, but there's splintering happening on a local level and ideologies. The local elections is causing splintering. There's all kinds of back and forth. And, we do have to deal with that in our local level, right? We can't sit around harboring resentment and bitterness, because that's a terrible place to act from. And I've wondered this, by the way, that sometimes people that get really lost in the political, the conspiracy rabbit holes, we're all about asking questions. That hasn't changed here at all. But I've noticed a correlation, and I hope I don't really trip over a wire here, but emotionally unhealthy, unstable people are struggling with that, bitterness and resentment, and that they, instead of dealing with it in their own hearts or they're taking it into the political world now. They're taking it into their social media posts and stuff. And so it affects everything. It affects your children. I was talking with a friend yesterday who's he's really struggling because there's something really horrible happened in his life. And he's like, I don't want to forgive, I'm like, I get that. I don't either. And I can also say with experience that if you don't, your kids, they can, it's weird how they can just pick up on it, not that you're mean to them or whatever, but the walls that you're building up to protect yourself from being hurt again in unforgiveness, those same walls keep your children out. They keep your spouse out. So there are really, really lasting effects by holding on to or refusing to obey Jesus' command to forgive.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point about, maybe what's happened in your life or what's happened in someone's life, whether it's a distrust or even a victimhood, can truly play right into their politics, right into the government.
Yeah,
looking for someone to blame, to hold accountable. Like it feels like it is transferable for a lot of people.
Yeah. You can, let me phrase it, you must do it from a healthy place. Because if you're doing it from fear, you're never going to get the right answer.
Yeah.
If you're doing it out of bitterness, you're never going to get to the truth. And sometimes I think people are doing that because then if I'm continuing down this road, I don't have to deal with my own marriage.
Exactly.
I've created this little podcast now, or I've created my little online blog. Sure. And so I'm dealing with
it's community. They get community out of that.
Yeah, so it numbs. It's almost like they get their dopamine from that, and they don't have to deal with the pain and hurt at home.
Yeah, we see that. Yeah,
we've seen a front row seat to that. And if you let that go and then come at it from a healthy place, because even for instance, one of the things I would say to that, some people say that doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel true, and what they really mean is that I don't like that, it makes me mad. So it doesn't feel true. So no, it's not about being true or false. It's about how it made me feel. And that happens on right, left, middle, all over the place. So going back to, is it true or is it not true? My feelings matter, but my feelings don't make it true or untrue. My feelings are irrelevant at that point. So I can say I don't like it, and I like forgiveness. It makes me mad. I don't want to do that. So it doesn't feel true. It's just I don't like it. Until I realize that, actually, Jesus did it as a gift for me.
Yeah, exactly.
We're in a fallen world. We are going to run into each other with regularity. And Jesus knew that there's no way this side of heaven to put the toothpaste back in the tube. And so he offers us the out, which is to make the decision to forgive. And it's an act of faith, because if I forgive, what I'm really saying is I'm trusting that Jesus can handle this better than I can. Doesn't mean we reconcile. Doesn't mean we bring it back into our life. It doesn't. Even at one of the families, there was something, they're potentially criminal in their lives. You do not have to stop the legal process for something like that. Erica Kirk can stand up and say, I forgive that man, and still say that, the government needs to prosecute this guy, the justice. But the only thing we can do on a regular day-to-day basis is hold on to it or let it go. And as more I've thought about it, even with the Matthew 6, the Lord's Prayer, our daily bread, this is a daily, I'd never really previously considered, this is kind of like a daily practice of what am I holding on to? Is there anybody today, Lord, that I'm holding on to unforgiveness for? Because you go into that, and we're going to talk about it a little bit this weekend, but Jesus attaches quite a bit, hey, when you're asking anything, stand, forgive, there seems to be some attachment to, as you have forgiven their debts, now forgive. There's a practice to it that is about freedom, but there's also about releasing something in our lives that unforgiveness can hold back for us.
And it makes the gospel that much more powerful.
Yeah.
When we can do it in our own lives to see what he did for us. And that's why we even can.
Yeah. Yeah, because and I want to be careful how I say this, because when you're broadcasting like this, sexual abuse, things have happened in people's lives. So I don't want to be glib, and yet I also want to be reminded of myself and remind others that the offense that I've committed against Christ is so much worse, and he forgave that. So, justice is one of two things at this point. It is, for those that are in Christ, justice was met out on the cross, just like for me. So all of my sins that I've committed, am committing, will commit, all covered by the blood. So the holding on to unforgiveness is almost a sense of pride, because at least I'm not that bad. It's not a recognition of my own sin. And there's a gift in saying, but if he can forgive me, then I certainly can forgive them, because he has forgiven them. And if they're not in Christ, there's an eternity of justice coming towards them with it. So we're all coming to the same cross, the same crossroads, the same choice. Receive the justice and mercy of the cross or receive justice for eternity. And I certainly don't want that.
And that was the Father sacrificing his Son,
Yeah.
That's
willingly.
Yeah. I love our viewers. I love our listeners. I love you. I wouldn't sacrifice my son for any of you. Sorry.
No.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, when you have a son, especially the older they get, actually when they're little, I don't know, any kid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't sacrifice my daughter either.
Oh.
Willingly. Mm-mm. Which it goes back to why the real reason for that was there was an actual sacrifice that was required.
That's right.
And I believe it's Colossians. I'll dug on it. The statement is God was in Christ. The Trinity matters. There, it's three people, but one God. God was literally taking the punishment himself in his Son, Christ on earth. But it was, there's that old metaphor, story, whatever sermon of the judge, his kid comes in, declares him guilty, but then he gets off the bench and takes the punishment for him. That's an example of what Christ did, what God did for us. And, this idea that it's somehow cosmic child abuse is just such a laughable, leftist, progressive, weirdo, secular idea, because God himself was in Christ on that. It wasn't, and look, I guess we can start wrapping up, but it had to be him, because all of our sins, like David and Bathsheba, against you and you only have I sinned to God. And the answer why was, because I feel like Bathsheba might have an opinion about that, but Bathsheba was God's creation, Uriah is God's creation, and he destroyed him. So the sin was on Uriah, but against God. We destroyed his handiwork. When we sin, we are sinning against his handiwork. So only he could actually forgive it. Only he, as far as justice goes, it's one thing to say that the crime, the judge getting off the bench, but it's not a complete picture, because the ultimate sin in all of us is against God himself. It's on each other, but against God.
So good, so helpful. I think it's just great that, we did kind of weave those two together. Just the idea of Islam in America and the gospel, like the truth of the gospel, and how we can balance this out. Because I really do think, Josh is right. Like, we need to know what time it is. Head on a swivel. We've dedicated a couple podcasts to this now. Islam is coming to America. Is here.
Yeah, I was going to say it came to America. It's here.
It is here. It is infiltrating, and pay attention. Not out of fear, but just out of awareness, and how we can serve one another, and how we can truly witness to our Muslim brothers and sisters that are here as our neighbors. Like, they need to hear the truth of the gospel.
Yeah.
And so preparing for that is, I think, very important.
Yeah, because we don't shrink back from this. We can't. That's cowardice.
Right. That's right.
And if your neighbor is Muslim or Hindu, or we have to risk those relationships as well. But, and there's, what I love about Fouad, he's done such a great job of creating, here's how to, love on and reach your Muslim neighbors. But the way that you don't do it is not saying anything. Right. So shrinking back in fear is not what we do. Period.
Yeah.
Whether it's Islam, Hinduism, radical, progressive, and, trans Tifa, whatever, we don't back down from the truth. There's consequences for that. We're going to take some flack. We're going to take some, I was going to say take some bullets. It's kind of a terrible time to say that phrase, but maybe literal, but for sure, metaphorical bullets, because when you're tearing down arguments, right, that exalt themselves above the knowledge of Christ, you are poking the dragon, like the kingdom of darkness. And that comes with resistance. And that's once we disabuse ourselves of the notion that we were not going to get this comfortable life, that was not part of the promise with Jesus, that when you said yes to Jesus, put a giant target on your back from the enemy. And so either he's going to neutralize you in fear, unforgiveness, build up walls, paralyze you so you're not going to do anything, or we break those walls down and become a threat to the kingdom of darkness. And especially if you're a young man, that's what you wanted anyway. Adventure, risk. Like literally, that's how God wired you for it, was not to shrink back, but to be courageous. And it's kind of God when you think about it. He wired us as humans in general, but men especially, for a sense of adventure and risk. And then the very thing that his mission requires is adventure and risk. Like, that's pretty kind of him. Like to say the very thing you need that I created you to need is the very thing it's going to require to reach the nations.
It's good. Glad you're back. Glad you're back in the saddle.
Glad to be here. The jet lag is finally wearing off.
40-something hours of travel for all you boys. And, man, did you get to eat a cheeseburger yet? Or like, pizza?
Yeah.
Or like some American food?
Oh, yeah. I hit that in Dallas on my layover on the way back. I had a giant cheeseburger right there. Because over there, it's like all yak burgers. Like and they do not taste like cows.
Are they sinewy, little rubbery?
It's specific.
I'm curious what a yak tastes like.
It's kind of like if someone was sweeping up the floor of a beef processing plant and a chicken processing plant, put it in a pile in a meat grinder, and then put it on a bun.
Like, how's the bread? Is it good bread?
Bread wasn't so bad.
Is there cheese? Slap some cheese on it?
Yes.
Do they believe in cheese?
Some do, some don't. So
this is a game changer.
So like the hotel we were at, you could get cheese. But they're also in a culture like, no, this one comes with bacon. Is that okay? Like they're making sure, because that's not religious purposes over there. But yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, bring on the bacon for sure.
Oh, that's great.
It's going to take off the edge of this yak.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for joining us this week on our Deeper podcast. We try to take current events and look at them through a biblical perspective and give us some direction and ultimately some hope. And so thank you for joining us. If you're just now doing that, would you go ahead and subscribe and go ahead and like the video as well? That helps. Leave a comment. That helps even more. Just appreciate you spending time with us here on the Deeper podcast.